All right, folks. We are at 9:30 here, so I'm going to kind of get things rolling as people kind of slowly filter their way in here. Hi, everybody. While we're, waiting for a couple of the stragglers to join us, why doesn't everybody let me know where you're joining from, where you're watching from right now, and also maybe raise a hand if you had asked a question in the HubSpot form that when you registered for this event, just so I can know that you're here and prioritize answering your question for you. I know there's at least one of you in here, so yeah. Awesome. Welcome, Sergey. Welcome, Evgen from Ukraine. Now I saw a hand raised from our phone in listener. If you can, you may need to put in the chat who you are because all I can see right now is a phone number. But I would love to try to answer your question if we have time to and if I can. Hi there, Richard. I know I'm answering your question today, Richard. So yeah, so we've got a couple people still filtering in, but I'm gonna just kind of get things rolling here. Welcome to the second session of Office Hours. I'm Joel, your host for this and all Office Hour sessions to come. This is a monthly live stream, kind of generally held in the middle of the month, generally 30 to 45 minutes long, where me and other people within ngrok are here to answer questions from you, our audience of developers and engineers. So like I mentioned at the very beginning of this session, just a few minutes ago, when you register for office hours, you have an opportunity to fill in a question ahead of time. And I really encourage you all to do that because it gives me time to create demos or really just kind of populate an informed, comprehensive answer to your question. But that said, I, would love to see other questions that come up in the chat here. And I will definitely prioritize answering those as I see them come in. And yeah, we'll kind of start with what I've got prepared and see what other questions come up from you all as we kind of forge through this. So like I said, I'm Joel. I'm a senior developer educator here at ngrok. And we're just going to kind of jump right into our first question that came from Richard Webb in the UK. And his question was, you know, he's been working on, I think, building REST APIs or interacting with REST APIs, but needs to kind of take the services that he's building and get some, events, some input coming in from external, from outside his network, from outside his system. And he's saying it looks like webhooks is what he wants to do. And so he was curious about how does he and other people within his organization get started receiving input from third-party systems or from, common webhook operators. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, and I've got a bit of a demo that I can bring up here, the webhooks demo. So hopefully you all can see this. I learned from last time to kind of make things as big as possible. If it's still too small, let me know. I can bump up the font size here even more. So yeah, what we're going to do is kind of do a quick demo of how ngrok lets you. Nicole says it's too small. All right, let's bump it up. Thank you, Nicole. How's that? We getting there? Better. Okay. We'll keep increasing the size if need be. So yeah, I love this question and I love kind of answering this because webhook interactions is really one of the first use cases for ngrok when it first started more than 10 years ago. That idea of you're developing an application locally and you you need to be able to connect that just to an external service. And without ngrok, your only option is basically to push your code to a production public server with every change, and then fire the webhook, see how it responds, develop more locally, push that again. And it's this kind of really messy cycle of rinse and repeat. And ngrok solves a lot of that. So yeah, what I have here is I have this project. It's a really basic Node.js server that I can start on localhost. So I think it's just npm start. Yes, it is. Okay. So I have this running locally, which is fine and great, but we're here to see how we can take inputs from external services and webhooks to interact with this server. So then I can go ahead and start up a ngrok tunnel. So basically, I'm using the CLI tool saying I want to create an HTTP tunnel and direct that to port 3000. And then I'm going to define a URL. And this is a domain that I have added to ngrok, and I control all the DNS and everything like that so that I can be able to add new subdomains to this really easily from the command line. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we should be able to, this isn't really the use case that we're looking for, but we should be able to curl this endpoint. And we get a thank you for your message. So basically, instead of curling localhost port 3000, we're going through ngrok, through the public internet, and coming back to our service. And we can see here that our little Node.js server is responding, saying, "Hey, I got this request, and everything's working kind of as expected." So, okay, we've built kind of the fundamentals here. We have a tunnel running. We can access this Node.js server from the public internet, but that doesn't quite get to the webhooks portion of this yet. So I can go over to a project that I've been working on in the ngrok samples repository. And this is just GitHub's a great way to kind of show off how webhooks use. It's a really easy way to get them started. So I can go over to the settings, into webhooks, and I'll make this bigger as well. It looks like I already have one. I'll just delete that. We'll get this all set up again. So we can add a webhook. We're going to put in our domain, our URL that we created earlier. We'll use application JSON, and that should be everything we need to add our webhook. And if we pop over here, you can see that GitHub has already pushed a webhook to our ngrok endpoint and then through to our localhost server. So you're getting all the data from GitHub. Everything is working as expected. And then we can even test this a little bit further by, I'll just create an issue to kind of create a new event within GitHub, and then that will actually create another webhook. And I believe there's some way to tell that it's different from the others. But basically what this does is that every event that happens on the repository, you're going to get a new, new data coming into your local server. And that really just allows you to develop quickly against these webhooks. So you can see what's coming in, you can manipulate your code, you can go back and run the webhook again and continue to iterate in that way without having to worry about pushing anything to production or doing CI/CD pipelines, anything messy like that when you're just getting started building an application. Any questions about that piece so far? Richard, I'm looking at you in particular because this was your question. If all of that makes sense, we can I'll kind of show kind of the rest of the, okay, Niji needs some help here. Let me do that as well. Remote. We've got some other ngrokers coming in here. We've got Justin and Niji coming in. Hopefully that works. Sergey, port 3000 is obligatory. No, it's not. That's basically port 3000 is just what this particular app, is it app? No, yeah, app.js. What this app runs on, port 3000, but it can be 4000, it can be 8080, it can be, essentially whatever you would like. Obviously, if you use ports that are of common services. Like if you try to use 80, you might run into issues. If you try to use 443, 27017 or whatever MySQL runs on by default, again, you might run into some issues there if you have other services that are already occupying those ports. But we can just as easily change this port to, I could even do that right now if we want. Change this port to, let's say, oh, my fingers are 3001. Save the app, and then just change this as well to 3001. And this should all still work as expected. Oh, I have to run the server, of course. The error was saying that the traffic is being tunneled, but there is no upstream service running properly. And you can see here that it's running as expected. So awesome. Let me take a moment here to give Niji the capability to speak and to chat and everything like that. I am not 100% sure of how to do that. One second, folks. Okay, yeah, Niji is already a panelist, as far as I can tell, but he seems to be unable to.
I think I can talk. Can you hear
There
me?
we go. Hey, Niji.
I can talk, but there'll be there's no video support for me. So
Okay,
uh
okay. We're gonna not worry about that, and we're just gonna forge through. Why don't we take a minute to Niji? Why don't you introduce yourself? Meant to do that at the beginning, but let's do it right now.
yep. Hi everyone. I'm Niji. I'm on the product team here at ngrok. I lead development of like endpoints and edges and the traffic policy. So if you have any questions around any of that, definitely be able to help. Um, and also other areas if you have any other areas, questions around any other areas.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Niji, for joining us. And we have Justin. Justin's kind of on mute in the background, but he's one of our amazing customer success engineers. And he's here to, if you have questions about like a specific implementation thing that you're struggling with, or just anything super technical, Justin's here to either give you an answer or direct you to to his support team and the other people there and they'll get you taken care of. Awesome. So let's jump back in. Let me kind of take this webhook discussion to its end. I wanted to just show off like two more pieces of what ngrok does when it comes to webhooks or just dealing with external data that I think are really cool. What I want to
Uh,
show, yeah.
Adele, I translated your original question. I don't know if the translation was perfect. Uh, I don't know if we like the way the translation came out was that do we have a tunnel that supports speed of light transmission for data. I would say we work on the backbone of the internet. We have POPs all around the world, and we do our best to load balance traffic nearest to where your customers are. So as a, great question. But I don't know if I can answer it perfectly, because I don't know if the translation is perfect, but we do ensure that, if your customer is near a POP, or we try and figure out what is the closest POP by latency. So as data is flowing through our system and it goes to your upstream and or to your customer, we pick the one closest to both of those areas. So the location closest to your upstream will be chosen, and the location closest to your customer will be chosen, and we will transmit data as quickly as we possibly can between those two.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hopping in there, Niji. I'm gonna share my screen once more here, and Richard, I see your comments about kind of like this is one level to moving a little bit too fast for you. So we'll connect. We can connect after the session here over email potentially, and try to get you set up, get the fundamentals down. And there's plenty of other docs and guides that might help you kind of get that fundamental setup. I just really want to quickly show Traffic Inspector, which is available in your dashboard. And you can see in here these webhooks coming in from GitHub, with all of the data available. Again, just like a really nice way to kind of visualize and parse what's coming in. And you can even replay these webhooks to kind of trigger another event within your app, or like trigger that webhook logic within your app again without having to manually do these actions within GitHub or fire off another webhook manually. So again, just like another way to kind of streamline the development process, and let you kind of interact with external services really easily. Yeah, so that's kind of it for webhooks.
I think Evgen, you have a great question.
Evgen.
Can
Yeah.
we create something like a proxy for different services or sites that we can specify? Maybe I need a little bit of clarity around, like, when you mean different services and sites, do you mean ones that you're hosting, or ones that are external to you, like Facebook and Google? Is that like a third party or your own external? Um, You can run the agent with instead of using a port, you can specify a URL. So you can do that. So you can proxy to external. You can additionally, so to answer your second question, is it possible to use ngrok for security purposes? You can layer in other things like agent modules, which, like the -- OAuth, like easy kind of like one line authentication for security and stuff. If that's not good enough for you, we also support something called the traffic policy on the agent. So whenever you define, like, instead of using the port like Joel was showing where he was pointing to his application, you put like your URL that you want to proxy to, and then you can pepper in on top of that. If you look up the traffic policy, there's a document that you can specify, and you can do things like deny traffic based off of a specific IP, or you can check to see the country code and deny traffic that way, or you can put OAuth in front of it, or you can route to another backend, or whatever you want to do from the traffic policy perspective, you can do. It's a more fine-grained document that gives you more control over the traffic.
Yeah, traffic policy is it's extremely powerful and extremely like configurable, and you can really do so much with it. I'll drop a couple of articles in the chat here of some of the things we've written lately about using traffic policy. We've got and we have a bunch of docs on it. We have a gallery that shows a bunch of kind of use cases and how you implement those. So if you're kind of getting to that more advanced level of not just like creating a tunnel to a service running upstream, but you really want to shape that traffic in ways that depend on the qualities of the traffic coming through. Like traffic policy is absolutely going to be really powerful for you. I don't think I have any demos today that show off traffic policy distinctly, but maybe we could get into that if we have some time a little bit later. Um, Nikita, you're asking, am I in control or am I controlled? I mean, I'm not 100% sure what the question is referring to, but I think what we try to do at ngrok is we have sort of an opinionated base level of how to deploy these tunnels, and like that's kind of the value proposition of the service and the product itself, is that instead of having to worry about all of these networking primitives and configuring them all and maintaining them over time, use the CLI, or you can use one of the SDKs. You can use our Kubernetes operator to kind of abstract away all that complexity of those sort of core networking primitives that are really complicated to get running, and especially with like getting it with OAuth or something like that is just going to be a huge task for you. But then on top of that opinionated baseline, we give you tons of different ways to configure ngrok, depending on your use case or your security requirements, or whether you need to have everything logged to Azure or Datadog. You can enable all of those for auditing. There's just so many different ways that you can kind of control the experience, both for yourself as a operator of ngrok and the end user experience of like what your customers or clients, what their requests and responses will look like when they interact with your services. I hope that kind of gets to a bit of the core of your question. And Niji, I don't know if you have anything else to add on top of that about like control and configuration. But otherwise, we might just kind of hop into another question here that was asked beforehand.
Yep. Uh, I think Nikita, I mean, uh, it, I think Joel answered your question pretty well. I think, whenever you're operating ngrok, you're obviously in control of what you're configuring and what you're defining there. So you're in full control. And as an end user of the services that you're providing to your users, um, they're getting the controlled experience that you're giving them, right? So I think that was a good summary of how like ngrok we make it very simple. You spin up your service, whether it's DigitalOcean, Vercel, wherever it is in the world, and you use ngrok to give it a public address, and you control the security and the orchestration of how that traffic gets to that service. Usually within like one line, or at least one, if you're using the SDK, maybe like a few lines of code that is inside your app. So we try and make it as easy as possible for you to do that, and you're in full control when you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Sergey's following up with questions about multiple webhooks, multiple tunnels, and to dig in a little bit more on that front. That's not really something that I think we can demo in the space and time that we have available, but I will share my screen here and point you all toward some of our documentation that I think kind of elaborates really nicely on that question of like how do you set up multiple tunnels, maybe to route to different services that you have running locally that would respond to different webhooks. So like you could have a webhook for GitHub, you might have a webhook for I don't know what's another like Twilio, so on and so forth, and then you can have multiple tunnels that route that traffic accordingly. And let me just see here. Yeah, so we've got a couple of examples here in this is the version 3 agents, where you can define endpoints, you name them, You have, what URL, what ngrok domain you'd like to make publicly available. And then kind of just like what I did with port 3000 or port 3001, you specify where this service is running in your on localhost. And you can do that, for any number of webhooks that you want to integrate with your services running locally. And then like this says, you start them all, or yeah, you start all of them, and you have multiple tunnels running from a single configuration file. Um, if you're running version 2, that's going to look different, but we really recommend that everyone hops onto version 3, and because that's going to be an enabler for a lot of stuff that's coming soon, and we'll probably be talking about more next month. Now let's see if that
I think I got a little bit more clarity around your question, Nikita, and Alejandro. I saw your question. We can follow up after I clarify with Nikita's. So yeah, Nikita, it's not like TeamViewer or anything like that. It's more of a proxy that you're kind of installing on your machine. You can obviously use SSH tunnels if you want to create those with ngrok, but it is up to you what you're defining and exposing. So if you decide that you want to expose like an SSH tunnel, or if you want to expose a specific service or a file from your file system, that is fully within your control. You install it on your PC. It doesn't run until you tell it to run. So that's how it works. Yep. Um, and let's see. Alejandro was asking about CNAMEs on Cloudflare. Um, I haven't personally tried with the proxy setting. I can try this. We can try this after and follow up with you. Um, it should work to answer your question, but I mean, that's something that we should just try and follow up after this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel I used to use Cloudflare as the DNS provider for all of the domains that I had. Like I have a wildcard domain in ngrok, but I sort of moved away from that. I'm pretty sure I had that enabled the proxy, the orange cloud the entire time. But I don't know if Justin has experience with this being sort of on the customer success side, has maybe had issues with that, and maybe not. But yeah, we'll double check that. And we always send out an email after, probably tomorrow, that kind of follows up with the recording, some additional information, links to relevant docs, so on and so forth. And we'll try to include an answer there for that, of whether that makes a difference or not. But in general, using Cloudflare as your DNS provider and adding those to ngrok is not an issue. Okay. I think we're kind of caught up on questions. We can maybe, Niji, if you can try to translate some of those while I jump into another kind of question that was asked ahead of time. That might be a nice way for us to kind of tackle both ends. And if you get an answer before I've got one of these demos up and running, feel free to jump in, or just kind of answer one of these questions. And actually,
Yeah.
I'll take a minute here as well to just see if anybody who asked a question, aside from Richard, is here today, is joining us live. And if you are, let me know, and I'll make sure to we'll make sure to get that question answered. I'm not seeing anybody off the top of my head here, but there was a lot of really good questions asked ahead of this session. I think I got like almost 20 like really like questions that deserve a solid answer. And yeah, just want to prioritize the folks that showed up here. Nikita, if you want to get in contact, I believe it's support@ngrok.com. Is that right, Justin and Niji? I've never had to send them an email myself, but I believe that's how you get in touch with our customer success team.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, I see Justin here in in the chat. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, so let's see here. We had a you know what I thought was another great question about um, using ngrok as kind of in that developer mind space of like, I'm a developer, I'm working on a front end, and I want to be able to kind of test that behavior or maybe share what I've been building with other folks, like other people on my team, or just be able to kind of like test it in a more production-like environment. And that's again like one of the fundamental use cases of ngrok. And while we have a lot of other functionality beyond that right now, like API gateways or site-to-site connectivity, all these kind of like big, scary sounding architectures, like we still do very much support this idea of developer productivity and, you being able to create an account, create tunnels, endpoints, and grow that as you need to, with our pay-as-you-go plans, which are like really flexible and kind of grow as you do. So I'm just going to do another quick demo here to kind of showcase this developer productivity angle. Um, yeah, so my colleague Scott, who would normally be joining me for these sessions, but I think he's flying to Cincinnati right now, if I'm not mistaken. He created a really great project, and I'll share the link to this, once I kind of gone through the demo of an API and React front end that lets him store and kind of catalog all of his vinyl records. Very niche, but Scott loves his vinyl, and I'm guessing somebody in the chat here like also loves their vinyl. So this might be a fun little project for you to experiment with or use as your baseline for like testing out your own developer sort of workflows with ngrok. So he has a server here that we can run. And this is the back end. npm. Okay. Let's maybe just server.js. I set up all these demos ahead of time, and then it's like, something goes wrong and you just have no idea why. There we go. I don't know what that's all about. So this is the backend server. It uses Mongoose to connect to MongoDB, which I have running in a container. And that seems to be going smoothly. He also has the front end in the same repository. And so I can do the same thing here, where it's very rude that this is broken in like the 16 hours since I last tested this. What if I just run node? That's not going to work.
Hey Joel, can I
Yeah.
hop in and ask you a question? I think it's been asked a few times, but will this be available on YouTube, or how can people get this recording after, and can people take screenshots and stuff like that while we're doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the recording, yes, we take a little bit of time to process this, and then we upload it to our YouTube channel. Maybe Niji or Justin, one of you can drop the link to that channel in our chat. Yeah, it should be up later today. And then, like I said earlier, we send up a follow-up email to you and everyone else who registered and just couldn't make it live, with a link to that recording and, like I said, some contextual information, some additional links that, we didn't get to add live here. And yeah, absolutely feel free to screenshot things. I take quite a bit of care to make sure that I don't expose secrets or anything like that. So I'm not particularly worried about anything like that. And I was
Thank you.
speaking and not debugging. So let's see here. I don't I'm truly incapable of doing both at the same time. What is available to me here? Starts. Oh, that's why. That's of course. It's always the most basic thing. Something is already running on port. Oh, it's my webhooks is already running on port 3000. Let's get rid of all of this stuff just to be safe. No, let's not run it on another port. Let's start this over. And of course, it's still gonna give me some grief about that. I see a lot of things in the chat. There's a lot happening. So let me see what's going on there while I kind of debug this a little bit in the background. So we have Sergey was also asking about, yeah, AI applications, which is something that we've done a lot of experimentation with internally, and something that we really want to be able to like better support. Um, I think one of the ways that I wanted to use it and couldn't quite like the capability wasn't quite there was using ngrok almost as a forward proxy where I'm making API calls to OpenAI's API and I want to route those through ngrok on the way out and then be able to kind of monitor them or manipulate them or replay them as I was showing you with the webhooks. And Niji, I think, we're working on things that would enable that. Is that right? It's like kind of on the roadmap.
So yeah, there's a few things you can do. Ngrok and Grok are two separate things. Grok is just to kind of answer, so help answer some of the questions that are
Yeah,
in
yeah.
chat and like set ground framework here. Grok is, by X, and it's a AI. Ngrok has been around much longer. It's, a way to provide connectivity to your applications and services. And with ngrok, you can use it as, like Joel, you were saying, like as a forward proxy. Internally, we're exploring what we can do, but we do have a bunch of customers already today who put ngrok in front of their AI applications and APIs. And if you want to like use it as a forward proxy, like I was explaining earlier, where like you put a URL into the agent instead of the port, you can do that today. And if you want to put traffic policy on that, you can also do that. But a lot of people will, as they build out AI projects or they're building out their own AI interfaces and APIs, they use ngrok to kind of share that creative process with their development team or with, other people on the internet or for production, like giving people access to like GPU instances or giving access to like a specific UI for a specific customer. So people use ngrok for that reason. Nikita, I would say it's not really a brain-based thing. It's more like a software-based thing. So as you develop on your machine, and you want to, share something with your friend who's next to you, traditionally you can't just give them like a localhost link. It won't work on their machine. You have to kind of give them like a public address that they can go and visit in their browser. And ngrok lets you do that. Ngrok will, like, you start ngrok, you point it at the application that you started on your machine. It gives you this public URL that now users can go and look at like in their browser, and they'll see what's running on your machine. It doesn't allow them to control your machine, just exactly specifically what you shared. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I kind of got all this demo running, and I think it kind of actually points nicely to what you're just talking about, Niji, of like you have something running on localhost and you want to share it with somebody, but like that's kind of the like there's a I don't know, it's a meme at this point of like not understanding that localhost is not a publicly accessible URL. And
Exactly.
it's like, it's kind of a meme, but it's a real thing that people struggle with. And I'm sure like Stack Overflow gets dozens of questions like every hour about like how do I get
Yeah.
around this?
I
Uh,
mean, you got to think like there are new developers every day, right? Like,
mhm.
and they've never, like, they're just starting out, just like we once did, right? And they're learning like what 127.0.0.1 means. They're learning what localhost means. And yeah, you'll always find people who, as they just start development, they try and share this with a friend, and they're like, their friend's like, hey, that doesn't work in my browser. You got to give me something that's like addressable, right? Like on the public internet. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is I've got Scott's vinyl collection app running here. And I think this is like a great example. Like I can't make the um this stuff bigger, but like if I wanted to share this with you, like with all of you, like I can put this into chat here and be like, hey, look at my cool app. And yeah, it's not going to work unless, you happen to be running the same service on your own system. So then what I've done here is again started in an HTTP tunnel at port 3001, which is where this front end is going. Gave it a URL, say I want it to be publicly available at vinyl.joelhans@xyz. And I have to give it a traffic policy file, which I can explain if we want to get into that. But when I run that, um, let me bring this over here. Like this is running right now, and you all should be able to access this from your own systems. And I can go ahead and,
Wow.
add
Yeah, I can.
one of my favorite albums. I don't know if anybody else here is a Beach House fan, but
It's a good band.
a good band. Oh, okay.
I like Beach House a lot. Okay.
Yeah. I'm very curious if we'll get anybody else adding stuff in here. Maybe I'll check again in a few moments. But like here you go. You can see kind of the power of ngrok making this thing accessible, and that makes it a lot easier for me to test like how does this behave if I can sort of give it to a bunch of other people and let them test against it, see where the bugs are, see requests coming in. Are they, is the status code good? Like what's happening in the background? Am I seeing errors on my servers? All of that good stuff. Really just kind of closes the loop on developing locally and yeah, I mean the cool thing about ngrok is like this is at least what I think is really cool is like running this locally is like kind of a developer version of what we're talking about, but you can just as easily take this same string, the same command, and like it's production grade as well. Like you don't need to change any of the configuration. You don't need to, add a bunch of additional services or networking primitives around what you've built. It's like you can deploy we could deploy this vinyl app to EC2, install ngrok on that VM, and then like it's bulletproof. It's ready to go. And that is for me is like the killer feature of ngrok. That you can just it's environment independent or agnostic is sometimes what we like to call it.
Yeah, and I just noticed, Joel, like I tried visiting and it's not loading anymore. Uh, I
Ah,
think like that kind of talks to what we were saying earlier. Like you're
yeah,
in full control, right? Like
yeah.
you close the connection, nobody can now visit it, right? But like if you start it again, it works, right?
And
And
it's
people
just
can now, like if you click the link in the chat, you can now visit and you can see it.
yeah.
And you can act and like Joel, you can see when people visit too, as well, like on your
Hmm.
machine here with this HTTP requests. Like I think shows some of the power here. Like you're in full control, like we were saying earlier, of what you're exposing, when you expose it, and how it gets exposed. Like you're in full control of that.
Exactly. And yeah, as requests come in, like they show up here. I don't want to like I don't know, they show up in traffic inspector as well, which is what I showed earlier. Yeah, here you go. Like somebody else is is hitting this endpoint and trying to do stuff. And yeah, you can also see all of this in Traffic Inspector, inspect the requests and responses, replay them, and really just have full visibility. And as Niji was saying, like this happens so fast. Like it's already gone now that I killed the ngrok agent service or program, but like I put it back up, it's running again. It takes like it's incredibly fast to get this provisioned, if you will. Awesome. Let's see. The chat has quieted down a bit, which is I'm glad to that, hopefully we're yeah, Sergey, I'll leave it up for a while. It should still be up. Unless I've kind of by oh, we go. Oh, we've got another album in the listing there, which is lovely. I'll, make a note of that and go
Oh
check it
yeah,
out later today.
that was me.
That was you. Okay, we love it.
Yeah.
I would love to see if anybody else has a favorite. And I guess it doesn't have to be a vinyl album that you own, but I'm always on the lookout for some good new music, so I don't get stuck in my ways or just listen to. I have two young children, so it's usually My Little Pony at all times, and I need to listen to some adult music every now and then. Awesome.
I'll add another one for you if it's still up.
Yeah, Sergey, it's this final. Oh, it should be just a little bit up in the chat there. I'll try to copy and paste it here again. Awesome. I mean, we're kind of running up on the end of our session here. We try to keep these tight and not super long here because I know it's everyone's time is valuable and we so appreciate you all coming. If there's any last minute questions, I think that now is a great time to drop those in. Otherwise, maybe we can end with like this is maybe a tough question to ask and have both of us talk about a little bit because it's so open-ended. But we had Whitney and Mohit in put these questions in the sign up form, the registration form of like, what can ngrok be used for? And like, how do I use it as Mohit's question was like, as a data analyst? Like, what are some of the ways that I could potentially leverage ngrok to make something about their lives as developers or engineers easier? So like, yeah, Niji, like how can you use ngrok? Like maybe we talk about some of the use cases that we haven't covered yet. We were really developer productivity and webhook oriented today. But like what else is out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of usages for ngrok, like there. So I can give you like some real world examples, and I can give you, some new and upcoming examples, right? So like some existing examples are people put ngrok into like buoys, for example, on the ocean, to kind of like have connectivity to buoys and know if they're like active and what the data set is on there and to extract information from them. Uh, the other thing is like people use them for like Wi-Fi machines in different countries so that way people can get access to Wi-Fi and access to the machines that the Wi-Fi is running on, stuff like that. People also use ngrok for like device, like other things in device management world, which is like you have a bunch of devices in a field and you want to know, you want to go and update them. People use ngrok for that. But there are some other, web-based ones, which is like I said earlier, like, up and coming AI companies using ngrok to, provide access to GPU instances or using ngrok to provide access to the APIs and UIs for those AI projects that they're building out. Or people using it for like as an API gateway, using the traffic policy in front of so they put ngrok in front of their APIs, and then they use the traffic policy as like an API gateway management tool, right? Like to manage the orchestration of traffic where that traffic is going, manipulate the request in some way, manipulate responses in some way. So it really depends. All you have to do is it's because ngrok is so easy to put your thing online, and then on top of that you have like security controls, you have traffic orchestration controls that you can layer in on top. Yeah, exactly. Ingress to external networks, development, testing, and production. Ingress, thanks Justin, are some of the ways we describe this, but a lot
Yeah.
of users find it easier than like spinning up a bunch of EC2 instances, associating those with like an API gate, like API, gateway inside of AWS. Because for every instance, you have to, if you want to do load balancing across the world, you have to like spin one up in multiple regions. And so like orchestrating and managing that infrastructure is complex and difficult. But with ngrok, you run a single line in your terminal, or you put a few lines in your code base, and now it is instantly load balanced across the world. You have access to all these API gateway functionality and features that through like traffic policy or like some of the modules from edges, you have instant access to that. And so people find it a lot easier than like spinning up a bunch of instances and trying to figure out how to configure those and making sure the configuration of those is right. And then finally getting to like actually doing the configuration of the security and stuff, right? So we're kind of like helping people shift away from like managing the infrastructure and more into the networking world and
Awesome.
into the
Yeah, I think
configuration and management of their apps. So yeah.
perfect. Awesome. Yeah, it's like, it's I think it can be like almost overwhelming to hear all of the use cases, but again, I think that's why, at least personally, why I wanted to join ngrok and like why I was using it myself years ago. And like there's just the flexibility of use cases is super exciting. And stuff that I want to be able to get into in future sessions, like talking about self-hosting and all these other ways that people are running. We have people within ngrok that are running like massive home labs and making everything accessible remotely with ngrok, and yeah, just so many opportunities. So yeah, awesome. I think with that, we're gonna kind of wrap things up. I keep clicking the wrong button here. Yeah, thanks so much everybody for joining. I've got a bunch of links here, my email, places to get in touch with us if we didn't answer your question or if you have follow-up questions. Obviously you can email me, you can email support@ngrok.com if you have a question about your account or a technical issue that you're running into. We have our community repo if you want to file a bug report or you have a feature request, something that you'd love to see ngrok incorporate in the future, let us know there. You can register for the next office hours session happening in the middle of November. Once we, update the landing page and get our webinar software up to date. And you can also register for the next developer roundtable, which is happening next week. And let me confirm what the topic is. It's solidifying your infrastructure with automation. And so that'll be hosted by Scott, our principal developer advocate. And there's Kareem will be joining him who's a senior developer advocate at HashiCorp. And they're going to be talking about all things infrastructure automation and scalability and errors and being ready for growth. So a lot of cool stuff happening there next week. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate it, and thanks Niji and Justin for hanging out with me for this hour. And yeah, we'll be back next month with another session. Thanks everybody.